Emily Kaneko Reynolds. Are you there, Emily?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Excellent. Yeah, I am well. It is evening now, so I'm really sad that I can't stay or, participate for the full um, course of presentations. I really enjoyed hearing from Paloma, and I know I'm gonna really enjoy hearing all the rest of the following ones. But yeah, thank you for inviting me here to present at you all today.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Whereabouts are you? You're in Japan right now.
I'm in Kyoto, so I bought a house. Haha.
Oh,
So
an old
that's
one.
yeah, it's an old one. It's only 50 years old. It's not that old. There's a small strip of you know bamboo and clay wall right up in there. So you'll see some more photos that are like super Japanesey, but super typical houses. So like one thing I really like to because I live in the countryside, so I'm 1 hour north in the hills from Kyoto City,
Yeah.
which most people come to if they come to visit Japan. A lot of people come to Kyoto. So I'm in the hills north of there. And whenever you go anywhere outside of any city in Japan, it's just mind-boggling how many earthen buildings there are. There has to be billions.
Wow.
Yeah, and once you know what to look for, you realize like, oh, that's one, there's one, and just like anywhere you go and they're all over the place. So the knowledge here is really, um, you know,
Have you had
deep,
your hands
deep.
in Have you had your hands in clay today?
I have my little sample here for you all. So yes,
Okay. I'll
yes.
I'll shut up and let you get going.
Okay, yeah. I do have a lot that I hope to share in my allotted time. So I want to keep myself on the clock here. Um, what am I going to share with you first is the PowerPoint presentation. We didn't check this.
We can see it though, that's perfect.
Okay, great. So there we are. Okay, I will start. Gonna be talking about Japanese interior wall construction. So kind of what Will was suggesting, sort of the step-by-step, like what we do and the hierarchy of earthen finishes. I'm just gonna sort of semi-touch on that, and you'll get the meaning when I get to that point of the presentation. It's kind of an odd concept until you learn about it. So thank you very much for that introduction, Will. So everything he said, that's where I am. And we'll get going. How do I do this? Oops. Oh no. How do I go to the next screen? My my computer is just beeping at me instead of
Maybe try the bottom left. You've got some little arrows there in the bottom left of your.
right. That's what I'm touching now, and it's not wanting to. Oh, you mean here? Huh. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. So what I'll be covering with you today, I hope, is sort of the step-by-step of making an interior wall within the wooden framework. Creating the bamboo framework, kind of in detail, applying the mud over that first bit, and then going over board for a mud finish, which is not what we're all here to do, but we're all going to encounter job sites where, for some reason or another, there's industrial materials that is our base. And another thing is that you can always suggest to people who expect that to be the base of the wall. You can give them the suggestion of saying you can finish that with clay. Like it's we do it here all the time, and it's been an educational thing for me to learn in my work. So I would like to talk a little about that, and then the hierarchy mentioned in the title is the shingyoso. So it's a formal type of wall, a formal finish. These are all about finishes. So underneath the finish is basically all the same system. The formal finishes, customary finishes, peasant style finishes. I'll get to more of that. And then at the end, I would like to show you some videos that are not going to be in the right orientation. Sadly, I tried to fiddle with it, but it didn't work out. But I want to show you a workshop that happens in Kyoto. So professionals take workshops, practice before they take any skill onto a job site. So I wanted to give you a look into that. And let me find my little arrows. And here we go. So the framework for, any Japanese house until, 50 years ago kind of looked like this. And what we do is we build out bamboo lathing into this framework. So I don't know what you call this, but they get buried into the wall. We call them nuki. I'm not sure if cross-eyed, if somebody can teach me English after the presentation, I would appreciate that. So etsuri. I don't know if you can see my little outtake, like where I am talking. This is the etsuri. It's a little bit of a broad slice of bamboo, and it's got this cut into the end of it that slips into the framework. So you'll see it's sorry for all the wind sound. Or maybe I can mute it. You'll see that periodically, like every foot or so, 30 centimeters, we insert these horizontally and vertically. And the way you do it is you take the bamboo, you bend it, you can bend it. It's got a little bit of a bend, and you stick one end in and stick the other end in. And you want at least you want this piece that you stick in to be a centimeter shorter than that full length. So you want it to be in there, but you want it to wiggle. And that's actually allows for taking in the impact of any earthquakes that happen. It's one of the reasons that these houses stand through earthquakes, which is not what I'm talking about today. So that'd be another thing. This is what we tie the ropes to. So you're not roping together every single piece of bamboo. Oops, not this one, not that one. How do I go to the next? Okay. And then this is, as we get going with the project, it looks more and more like this. With the tying, you can sort of see where each piece is tied to this thicker bamboo, and then there's thinner bamboo pieces in between those, which is like this. And you can see that their thickness is different, their width is different. They have different functions. So we have different bamboos according to different functions. And I keep on losing my cursor. Where's my cursor? There. Oops. So when we tie it, we start vertically. That just makes the whole process easier. Start vertically in the middle, center part of the wall, and we're looking for about a 9 millimeter. No more. About an 18 millimeter distance between each of the bamboos. That seems to be enough to get a finger in. Am I saying that right? Maybe it's more like 27 millimeters. I'll get back to you on that. But you want your finger to be able to get in there because you need to bring the rope around. Hemp rope, by the way, also works. This is rice straw rope. Jute rope also works. But we start the ties in the middle, and then, oops, that's not what I want to do. As we go, you tie the next one over, the next one out, the next one over, next one out. That way it's just, you get a nice solid framework for all of that. And then this is sort of a fasty. I don't work this fast, unfortunately, but this is, going from one side to the other, and just the process. And so we start on this side. In this case, there's, those cross ties on the top and bottom. So I only need to do one there, but then I'd go to the other side and do the nuki on that side. So roping, when you first start at the, one end of the etsuri, of the bamboo, the thick bamboo, you do a slip knot, and that gets it nice and tight up there. And then you wrap in a pattern, this one, any pattern. You just want to be able to do a quick pattern. you wrap in a pattern, and then when the rope lets out, because you saw like I had that sort of mound of rope tied to my waist, so it's just long enough that it's easy to work with for pulling things through, but also not long enough that you have like one entire rope on an entire length, so you have to tie. The tie is a square knot, and how do I lost the, oh, there. How do I meet that? No, I am not seeing the there. So you get that nice and tight. You want to make sure that you hold on to the ropes at every stage, because you don't want that to get loose anywhere. And then I use what I call a bo peep. It's a kind of a hard wire that I can bend into the shape that I need to hook the rope through. And then when you go over these nookie, these cross ties holding the post together, then you wrap twice around the bamboo that's at the top before you wrap around on the side of the bamboo. So if you were to just keep going there and then wrap around on this side of that nookie, you're going to run into trouble later. I'm not going to go into explaining why, but just go on the side of the bamboo. And then I'm just going to get this one playing before that one ends, just to show you how to tie off the end. Wrap around 2 or 3 times at the bottom. It's a challenging and time consuming process, but the results are, as what we try to go for, which is the natural, fully natural wall. And you just want to, oops, okay, so I'm not really supposed to be taking videos on job sites, so I'm doing my best to give you a sense, and the camera doesn't want to always cooperate in its location. So just keep everything tight. If you just wrap it around a couple times and then tie it off, you have a solid enough base there. And I've shown this, to some people in California who didn't believe that, such a flimsy mesh would possibly become a solid wall, but it really does. It's quite nice. So let's go. Then the fermented mud, some of you might already be familiar with this concept that we work with here, which is fermenting the mud with long pieces of straw. That hoe there is probably about the size of my foot. So if you think about that, and then the lengths of the straw that you see, that's about where it's at. After it's been fermenting with longer pieces of straw, right before we use it, we use shorter pieces of straw in the mix, which we use for the center layer. And again, I don't know if you can quite see what I'm showing you here, but stuff like that. So then that, we apply it on one side, dry on the other. This is just a kind of a comparison of the bamboos that we use, because some rooms are tea house rooms. We use really thin bamboo. This is your typical normal room bamboo. This is the tea house bamboo. The reason is, we'll make a 5 centimeter, I'm sorry for all the noise. Having a hard time with all this. Let's stop. So typical width of our walls, like the full width of the earthen bit, is 5 or 6 centimeters. And when we make a tea house wall, it's more like 35 millimeters in total width. So you have to start with a thinner material, hence the thinner bamboo, which you can kind of tell in that shot there too, but I'll try to show you here. This like very top bit of the joint is shaved off. So it's shaved off on the inside, like the meat in there is shaved off, and then that joint bit is cut off a little bit too, just to keep everything thin and tight. So the first side, when you apply it, you go back around to the other side and sort of mush flat, sort of just quickly flatten down anything that's sticking out. So you want that key. This is part of the great strength of the wall, is that key going back there, and then you smushing it down. And then once you do that, you plaster the other side. And so everything happens in these layers, and that's part of, I think, the strength and also the repairability of all of these structures. So yes, we do tape off the edges of the cross tie wood pieces to keep them clean. There's a reason for that. And then the way that we navigate going over those cross ties is, again, back to hemp. We plaster a small bit of lime just on the wood bit, and then plaster a layer of mud over that, kind of not quite a clay slip, but not very thick, just enough to embed this kind of mesh over the entire width of the wood, and then 5 centimeters on top, 5 centimeters below, so that we cover that wood with the lime, which is going to keep it kind of in its place. This mesh will keep the cracks from happening. You were talking about that, like seeing the outline of the timber. This is how we deal with that. So this goes over that. And then because there's, I'll talk about this now. Because there's lime on the wood, and also there's wood there, the way that moisture gets taken in and then released from the wall is different for where that wood is versus where it's all earthen and bamboo. And in Japan, where there's a lot of moisture, humidity is a big deal. And so the uptake and the outtake of humidity affects the walls and how they look over time. So in some cases, it's not that long, maybe over months, but in some cases over years. And that white of the lime kind of gets revealed in the look of the wall. And you'll see that in some of the following pictures. So yeah, everything dries. Next I want to talk about refinishing, because that's the beauty of these materials. We can work on structures that are decades or hundreds of years old and keep them looking really fresh just by taking off the top layer. So this the thin layering system is really nice, because when you're ready to refresh, if there's been some water damage, you can kind of see a bit of water damage on that bit there. Or if you just don't want it to be blackened anymore, because manganese in earth plasters causes this sort of blackening to happen over time. And so we just scrape off that top layer and then treat the wall as if we're going from the center layer again. So we figure out how much reveal we want on the wood, and then we use this sandy clay, really fine material. So this is something I would really love for you all to be able to touch, but since we're online, I'm just gonna, I don't know if you can hear that. Hi. Can you hear that sound? If you work with clay, then you might understand how much very fine sand is in this mix, and a little bit of just a little bit of fibers, very fine fibers. So it's a really super sticky clay, very strong against water damage. Because we're putting so much sand into that mix, it's not shrinking away from the edges, and so you're not getting cracks in between your wood pieces and your clay framework. And then there's also, let's see, another way to keep those spaces tight, that we do a layer of plaster to get ready for the finish, but then so it's always in two. So we don't just do one layer of finished plaster. It's always 2 layers of finished plaster. We don't just do one layer of the brown coat. We do 2 layers of brown coat. That's how it gets flat. If you're just doing one layer, then you end up with sand kind of rolling along. But if you get 2 layers, then those sand pieces will lock together and give you the opportunity to make a flat surface. So when you do that first layer, you can go around the edges again with a sandier material than your finish. So you have your finished material and then you just add a little sand and go around the edges for a little more guarantee that you're not going to get that gap happening. This is for very high-end places that do pay a lot of money for their work. So, you know, cost is a factor if you're putting all this effort into it. But if you have time, these are really worthy steps, I think, for this kind of work. And then also just for advertising the possibilities of clay and earth walls. Okay, so I'm very, very sorry, but this happens. Plasterboard. When you have plasterboard, we go over it with something, I think that in the West is called Structolite. I've never used Structolite in the US. I've only worked with clay there. So I don't know what all these materials are, but it's a gypsum. I know it's gypsum, and I know there's perlite mixed in with it. So again, we do this kind of go around bit after doing the gypsum plaster. They sort of treat it the exact same as any other earthen wall after this point. So this is another trick. Everything is about keeping gaps from happening in between the wood and the plaster. So again, hemp, because hemp holds up really, really well in these places. This is a hemp mesh attached to a bamboo stick in these teeny tiny brad nails. This was a video, but I was not able to bring it onto the presentation somehow. So I just took screenshots, but you can see, like, you know, you nail down both ends of the stick first, and it's lined up against whatever your finish line is going to be, or, you know, near your finish line. And so these are all taped off exactly where we want our finish to go. Or not quite the before finish, but the finish is only like 2 millimeters thick. So basically around that line. And then whack in the nails in between so that you keep your place of where you want this. And that's going to prevent any shift of your wall away from, or it's going to help prevent a shift of your wall away from your wood. And these do also. This is a same kind of nail, but just wrapped with hemp fiber. Japan used to grow a lot of hemp after America made it illegal for them to do so. The United States, I should say. They haven't had that much more. I think we get all of our hemp from China now. But it's a great fiber that gets crossed in. So you can see that after it's nailed in, you know, as far into the wall as you can, because you don't want it popping out of the surface, or you don't want your trowel hitting it either when you do this. This is before the go around or before that sandy bevel around the edge. You nail these in and then cross them. So the crossing of the fibers within the wall system also helps everything stay in place. If there's any, the wood will move and shrink. There might be earthquakes. That all of this will help to prevent the wall system and the wood from moving away from each other, and you get something like this in the end. Again, sorry that it's on top of board in this particular job site, but this is what it could be like in another thing. This is the background I've been using for all of these slides. But this is what the plaster looks like once it's dry. So you can see that it's a uniform look throughout the whole wall. So that's what's kind of, you know, demanded in Japan, is that if you, you don't see any change in the surface. We call it the skin of the wall. If there was, this is something that's stuck into the wall. It's not I thought it was a damaged bit, but it's not. It's like a hook or something that's poking out. That's part of the design of the room. But as far as the skin of the wall goes, you don't see any variation. That's something that is a demand here. And if there was a variation, we'd have to take it all off and do it again. It would be called a failure, which, you know, I don't necessarily think that that's where the world needs to go, but it's something that we do here. And when it dries, it looks like that. So a lot of times what they're looking for in finishes in Japan is it's the skin. So it's how what's the fiber, what's the sand you're using, how does it appear to the in the room, on the wall. Most people will never ever notice it, but it just does make that subtle difference in the feel of the room, which is part of that hierarchy bit that I was mentioning, that I'll talk about more. And this is more or less the same material, maybe a little bit of a different fiber with a dragged finish. So it's just different things that you can do. Again, the dragged lines, are uniform throughout. So you have to have a flat surface if you're gonna, make sure that there's not any holes in the pattern of the drag across the wall. Okay, so I can talk about some of those hierarchy bits. Formal, customary, and peasant. So in this background, this would be considered a customary background because it's a little bit rough. However, the formal, it's a finer grain sand, a finer fiber, and the wooden elements in the room would be square. They'd just be like, they'd just be right angles, I guess, yeah, right angles. And so even if there was one of these, sort of shitajimado in English would be, I guess, reveal windows. The plaster as it meets that window space is also in right angles, except at the corners at the top there in this particular situation. But that would sort of give attention to the room, which makes it a formal space. So the walls are dictating, are helping the room dictate how people should behave in that room, if that makes sense. That's kind of the idea behind it all. Some examples of these formal finishes. In fact, paper is considered the most, the highest class of formality. So you would have an earthen wall, earthen, like a center layer. What's interesting with the paper bit, this is mulberry paper because in old Japan that was what there was. The skin of the wall behind it over time sort of reveals itself within the paper. So if you go into these old tea houses where you'll see this, or these old formal rooms where you'll see this, this has got a lot of water damage, and so maybe the paper is kind of, oh gosh, I'm way over time and I'm nowhere near the end. Let me keep up here. Sorry. Formal, polished, and this mizugone finish, like the water-based finish, which I'm gonna hopefully show you. This is otsu finish, also formal. It's a lime clay. So this is on the left is right after application. Center picture is after the material has dried, so you can see the fibers, you can see the skin of that wall. And this is what that plaster looks like, which goes on like 1 millimeter thick.
Emily, just gonna let you know, because
yes.
Q&A is just gonna be you. Don't worry too much about timing because Paloma's not, because she answered some questions earlier. So
that was great.
Take your time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, but I will run through. There's not a lot more. I think the videos are going to be kind of exciting for people. I love watching plasters here work, so I'll try to get to that. Gyo, ordinary. Even the wood, you can see that it's only, gosh, it's only partly carved, and you can see the round part of the post as well. I need carpentry terminology, which I don't have. So it's just a little more rounded. It's kind of a regular place. So for a room like this, for example, it's like the family room. You just kind of hang out and sort of be there. And then so the peasant finish. Now this does not look particularly peasant, but if you actually went around the neighborhood where I am, which is the countryside farmers, it's really cute and surprising and lovely to see that storehouses often have these little windows that are either round or some other shape. It's just the way that they make windows, right? This before glass. So, in this sense, like the wood is minimally processed. So you could say like the shop before it was like partially processed. It kept some of the round of the wood. But in this case, like you're just using, full on round wood as it is. And then just giving kind of a softer, more natural shape to the space. So what's interesting with this one is that tea houses, which are considered, kind of the highest of the high, demand this kind of finish as well. So, depending on who's your client, how this kind of work comes into play on job sites. It's not just for peasants. I'll put it that way. It's for everyone. And you might see this kind of finish, which is we did in that job site with the board. That last picture I showed you was like this. So that was wet, and this is dry. And over time, that manganese, I think this is probably manganese that's turning it black. It might be something else. But over time, the patina changes. And that's also, in Japan, it's known, desired. Over time, plasterers know which earths are going to have this effect and which aren't. It wasn't known that it was manganese that was doing this until just a few years ago. So everybody thought it was iron. It was not. It was manganese. Kind of fun fact. So this is just inside, probably this upper part of somebody's house. This, because it's the countryside, you're not going to get that treatment on the edges that prevents the wall from slipping away from the moving wood. So this is probably like a 180, maybe 80 to 120-year-old structure. So that's not bad. You can fix that too. You can fill it up if you want to. Everything's fixable, and this is how it ages, and it looks great, and it looks strong, and yeah, Mizugone finish. So this is considered one of the hardest finishes, and it's water-based is not a fantastic translation, but the reason that I say that is because mizu means water, and gone is a form of a word called koneru, which means mixing. So it's a water mixed. It really is called water mixed. And that's as opposed to using some sort of glue, usually seaweed glue, for another type of earthen finish that's considered a little more durable, but also a little more weak. I'm not sure how that exactly works. But after finishing it, this was at a workshop. So I didn't get a picture of what it looked like dried, but this is what it looked like after it was applied. And this application is also like 2 millimeters thick. It's so thin. And then especially after you dry. Oh, blank screen here because I need to share something else with you. These videos did not make it onto the thing. So let me get over. I can't find my play button. It's blocked by this. Oh, there. Okay, so this is, I can't. That's the mix for the finish, isn't it? Yeah. So you can kind of see the texture. I don't think that, yeah, that's the texture. Yeah, you can see the fine fibers in there. And these were meticulously created. So these mixes are meticulously customized. The next thing I'll share with you is these guys. This is not what I want. These guys, they're taking the material that came in the bag and they are quickly putting it through these sifters to get the dust out. I don't know if you can see that dust flying, but it's so dusty in there. And they're just trying to get the dust out of this material that was said it was for this process, like for this finish, but it's not. Like there's just too much dust in it. So you have to customize after you get the stuff that you buy. So then they do that, get that stuff out, and then they take what was left from how do I move you? They take what was left after removing the dust and then put it through another sift, which I don't have a video of that. This is in the end what you get. I have very small hands, so you can kind of get a sense of what the material might be by seeing that with my hands. And so the customization of materials here for finishes is outrageous. It's out of control, but yeah, that's part of the fun of all the madness. And then let's see, this, I'm so sorry, but it is sideways, so you can turn your head over to the left and you'll get a sense. So he's gone around that edge that he's gone around the corner, like you can see it like around the framework. That might have had like, yeah, I'm sure it had a little bit of extra sand to it because this is the workshop. They're being really thorough about how they're sharing with people who have, you know, this is on a Saturday and Sunday on a weekend, but we laborers work on Saturdays. And so everybody at this workshop had to take a day off of work to participate on this weekend. And actually some people only made it Sunday. So the teachers are really aware of that, the sacrifices that people make to come to their workshops. And so they're extremely meticulous and very good about sharing as much as they can with the participants in terms of techniques and method and even as far as like how to talk with clients so that they can understand the value of these kind of finishes. So there he goes, getting that part on. And then the last video I'm going to share with you is after he's applied the final layer, because that was just the base layer before the finished plaster goes on. So because you need to have a lot of moisture in your plaster to get a successful finish. So you wet your background, wet, as much water as it will hold. And then you apply your base layer, which goes on 2 times. So 2 passes of the base layer. And then when that gets to like a pretty nice dry spot, but not dry, like not even leather dry, maybe leather dry, then you finally do 2 passes of your finish. And then he's using this like super heavy, after that's all flattened, then the final step is taking this super heavy trowel. And the goal is to lay those teeny tiny fibers flat into the surface. There's no pressure at all. You lay that in there slowly, lay it in, and the slowness also helps to bring the clay particles up to the surface. So in the end, you get this really, it's almost spongy feeling, but it's soft and it's, I don't know, it's a really beautiful finish. And just because it's so super difficult to accomplish, it's you know, it's an important one to keep in the quiver, because you know nobody's paying for this kind of work anymore. You know, laborers aren't as cheap as they used to be, and so that's affecting the whole industry. And very few people can pull this off anymore, let alone have the trowels to do it. So to keep these skills intact is something that Japan is struggling with. But it's really fun that around the world, people are getting interested in this exact thing that they're such masters of. So yeah, I'm gonna try to keep all the sharing going. Thank you. That's all I got for you.
Thank you very much, Emily.
Thanks very much, Emily. That was really interesting. Will, do you want to have there's quite a lot of questions that come in on the chat, so maybe Will, do you want to?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
Good.
I'll do some quick ones first. Where can we buy your books?
Okay. I have the Japan's clay walls here. This one is Amazon. This was back 2009 when Amazon was a company that I didn't have gripes with, nor their sister company CreateSpace, who made that for me. This one is the one I really want to get out there, and I actually wrote it 4 years ago now. It's been 4 years, and I only self-printed 130 copies, and it's called Sakan at Work, and so Japan's natural plasterers, and it's at the job site. So 15 different workers sent me pictures of them doing work at all their job sites, and so it's like on the job. It's as good as being on the job, and even for me, like the more I look, I'm like ooh, because I tried to just make it big pictures that you can really zoom in on with your eyeballs. And
where can we get that one?
Where can we get that one? So I tried to go back to Amazon because I realized like no matter what publisher I go to, they're going to go to Amazon, so I might as well just directly put it on there. And so I did, and I got this proof copy, right? Like this is the proof copy from Amazon. And then when I'm like, okay, it looks great, let's print, they're like, nope, can't do it, our system won't let us print your book. I'm like, why? So it's because the bleed, like it's because of the pictures of where, like the location of the pictures and the bleed and the thing. And then I'm like, what do you mean you can't print it? You printed it. So I don't understand what the problem is. If anybody has any ideas, please let me know. This winter, I do need to get this out. I tried this past summer. I spent a lot of time, and I thought I had it, and I didn't, and then life has overtaken me at this point, and I need to get back to it because I really do want to share it. It is a really sweet compilation of amazing people's work.
Could you put the name of that book into the chat?
I can. Sakan and Work. Not available yet.
And maybe a slightly longer question. So in traditional builds in the UK that are similar, we have wattle, which is like hazel instead of the bamboo, and it's woven. It's weaved. Sorry, it's weaved instead of tying them together. So you've got bamboo on one side and tied, but we. So why do you think you tie that rather than weaving it in between?
How do you weave?
Like if you had a load of uprights, you'd then take the I don't know what you call it, like a hazel lath, and you'd weave it in between the uprights.
How do you? So do you have two people? Like, how do you get it to go?
But maybe that's the difference then. Would bamboo not be bendy enough to go through?
I'm afraid it might not be. It would be super tricky. Yeah.
And is the bamboo like fresh, or is it dried?
It's dried. It's dried. Yeah, not fresh. Another thing I can think of why they might tie the bamboo here is because there's an enormous abundance of rice straw. And it used to be that everything was made out of rice straw. People would make their shoes out of rice straw, and you'd use it until they got wonky, and then you'd make another pair, or you make a new pair every day, or somebody in the village would, so that kind of, rice straw was just used for everything. And so it was abundant and everywhere. So it's the thing to use.
Okay. And there's another question. So in the plasters, is it always rice straw you're using?
Yes. Yeah. In the plasters, it's always rice straw unless it's lime. And this is where, I know Europe has been on to hemp for a long time, and US is catching up, I hope, but they're so into CBDs and such that like they're not getting into this kind of thing. So this is the fiber that we use for lime plasters. We don't use it in earth. Haven't seen it used there yet. but you know, we have, this is the 10mm version. I don't even know how they do the cutting of it.
Is that hemp or
Or how they
straw?
process. It's hemp. This is
Wow.
hemp. It's super soft. Yeah. It's it has 17mm. This is the 10mm. We have 5mm. You know, because that the different lengths help integrate the lime in a way.
Wow.
But so that's basically it as far as fibers go. It's either hemp or rice straw. So
And
that's what was in the country.
how available are those materials in Japan? Are they available everywhere,
Now,
or is it special?
yeah, you have to find them. It used to be everywhere. Again, like even like quarries for earth plasters. I heard that just in this region until not very long ago there was 40 of them, and now there's like 2.
Oh no.
So yeah, everything is like and then seaweed. So the lime plaster is it's just 3 ingredients. It's those hemp fibers, lime, and seaweed glue. And we like this year, there was this like crisis where we could not get the raw seaweed material. Like the last person that provided it just was just like, man, not making enough money. So stopped. And we were like, but somehow like it was enough of a crisis that someone else has stepped up. And even some plasterers, young plasterers, are like, maybe I need to find a source, you know, just in case this kind of thing happens again. So yeah, we're on a precipice of like danger zone right now for materials. Yeah.
I will, just to say that we are into the on the schedule for the comfort break, so you may want to take a comfort break for the next set of speakers. Go ahead, or if you want to stay for a few more questions.
Yeah, so I carry on with questions then. If people want to stay, they can.
Yeah, maybe a couple more questions, but then I think we're going to have to wind it up for, you know, maybe Emily might want to answer some of those in the chat. You know, over lunch.
Well, one of the questions was manganese ?
Yeah.
What's the deal with the manganese?
The deal with the manganese is that it's what causes the black patina. Did I not show?
Yeah, how does that work? How does that process?
So it looks rusted, and you know the I forget English. The overall thought was that it was iron oxidizing, but actually my master did an experiment with the university and found out, they did like x-rays on these walls that had this black patina coming out over time, and found out that it was manganese. And so I guess manganese is a very tiny little element, and as moisture hits the wall, gets absorbed, and then dries, it drags out the manganese to the pores, sets it to the surface, and only the very surface of the wall will blacken. So if you just like scrape your fingernail against it, it's gone. But it's that interplay of moisture, they found out. It wasn't temperature, it was humidity. So if you want this effect, boil a pot of water in the room and then shut it off.
Wow.
And then boil a pot of water in the room and then shut it off. And it'll hasten the effect.
Were the earth blocks, some earth blocks they made at H.G. Matthews a long time ago, before they changed their recipe, would go jet black in like 2 years, like absolutely jet black, and so, but only on the surface, like you were describing. So with that's probably manganese then.
Probably manganese, yeah. So if you find an earth that doesn't have manganese, if you don't want that, find an earth that doesn't have manganese, and chances are it won't happen.
It was interesting because we found that adding a tiny amount of lime also stopped it happening. So like maybe 1% of the mix was lime, or less than 1%. That would also stop it going black.
I wonder something about the acidity.
Yeah.
Kills the manganese, or maybe there's something else, but yeah, that's
Maybe
what they found in this. Yeah.
Another question: could you describe a fermented plaster as opposed to an unfermented, and what do you think is going on in there?
Yeah, that's also, there's a Japanese research paper on that I wish I could pull right up, but so the breakdown of straw happens really quickly. If you've ever had your hands on rice straw versus oat or wheat straw, it is soft, and if you stick it into water, it just melts and it gets gluey. Rice paste, rice flour, super sticky. I don't think that the same stickiness happens with wheat flour exactly. So that same kind of difference is happening in the straw. And so when the straw hits water, it gets stickier in a way that wheat straw doesn't. And then it breaks down. It breaks down over time fairly quickly. And so sort of the wives' tale, shoot, I can't remember English, is that one piece of straw becomes 100 or 1,000 fibers in the mix. And so as it ferments, the straw is breaking down, bacteria is being created and released in the mix, and it's getting this sticky kind of glutinous element to it. So what happens with that is that not only do the fibers become more malleable and workable, but also the whole entire mix gets like a gloopiness added to it, which really makes it easier to work with. And then also because of that extra glutinous stuff, once it dries, it's stronger to weathering. It holds up against water in a way that the fresh mix won't. On a sort of a side note, dovetail, the same sort of thing happens with any earthen plaster if you just keep it in the mixer for an hour. So make a mix, take it out after 10 minutes, put that aside, keep that mixer going for an hour. You're going to have something that is very noticeably different.
Oh, wow.
And those fibers have crushed and bumped against each other. Put a lot of fiber in there because the fibers are going to be what kind of keeps your mix all tight and from cracking once it's dry. But try it. I know that a lot of you might have that equipment to
I've
try.
not tried leaving it in for an hour, but maybe I'll do that.
I hadn't ever imagined it either, but at that exact workshop that I was showing the videos of just now, the instructors there, they did that. They took apart, they took a little bit out of, when we would normally take the plaster out of the mixer, and then left it in for an hour and took it out and was like, check it out, and passed around the hawks. Everybody felt it with it was like, oh, like very, very noticeably different. It's very nice to work with. Yeah.
Wow. Another one, is the plasterer always the framer as well? Or do they sometimes different trades?
No, sometimes different trades. So I think in the past, when these types of structures were the only ones around, you had the bamboo guy. So the bamboo guy would come and do the bamboo bit. And you might even had the base layer guy, the base layer mixer. There's one person that was their profession. Creating the base layer. So we don't get to do that often. In fact, I've been at this company for 5 years now, and that project was the first time that I've been involved in making the bamboo lattice work, and the third time that I've known that it's happened in our company. So not much.
Drying times for the base coats or undercoats and the top coats? How roughly what would be the drying time of each?
Yeah, it depends on the time of year, right? The temperature outside, and that's why you saw big fans going. And it was summertime and things weren't it was very hot. Hot and humid. So your location is gonna make a huge no comparison how long it takes to dry here versus how long it takes to dry in Arizona. So yeah, it depends a lot on that. If you're looking to speed it up, run fans, hopefully on some happy energy source. Yeah.
And there's a question in the chat. What is the seaweed glue doing in the plaster? And is water not used with the lime and fiber?
Oh yes, water is used with the lime and fiber. Yeah, that is so 4 ingredients. Sorry. Ingredients, water is an important one. What is the seaweed glue doing in there? It's debated among my mentors as well. I think it's making it more workable. So it's giving us more time to maneuver the plasters to where we want it, because again, it's that whole skin issue. You don't think you call it cat faces. Do you have that terminology there?
Not
No.
that I know of.
Okay. So if there's a divot, if there's a very flat surface, and then there's a divot in the surface, or there's like a rough spot, then we've done something wrong. So what's really interesting with shikui, with the Japanese lime, is that we apply it twice. It looks like it's going on thick, but by the end of it, by the time we're finished working it, which takes time, like as it cures, you're going over it again with different trowels. And so the trowels have different features, different characteristics. The application trowel, the evening trowel, the another evening out trowel, and then the finishing trowel. So each of those will get used over a period of time, and the seaweed glue is going to determine how much working time you have. So if you don't have enough working time, then your plaster is going to crack when it's dried, or it might even delaminate from the layer that we've done underneath it, which is also a lime-based, seaweed-based, tiny bit of sand layer.
So it kind of stops it drying so quickly.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they put things in plasters, pre-mixed plasters here that in lime plasters mainly that do that. Like, what do they call them? Not like a plasticizer, but like a water retainer that just gives you a lot more working time. Okay, I could carry on chatting to you all day, and I'd love to, but I think we've
and I saw
got
some people made some book suggestions too, so thank you very much.
Yeah, you have to check. You have
I'm
to
in
go
trouble.
through that and check that out. So that was incredible. Thank you so much.